Do you struggle with spelling? I talk to a lot of test takers, and they tell me that they often get caught up with little spelling mistakes. And so today I'm going to share with you 5 spelling tips, 5 spelling reminders that will help you to be a little clearer and help you with your spelling. And this will make a difference when it comes to the IELTS exam because little spelling mistakes can cost you marks when it comes to the IELTS exam, not only in your writing, but even losing a mark in the listening section because you wrote down a word with incorrect spelling. So I hope that just by reminding you and sharing these 5 spelling tips with you, it will make a difference and help you to get a higher score on the IELTS exam. So here, let's get started, and I'm just going to share with you one rule that I think was maybe the first rule that I ever learned when it came to spelling way back in elementary school. And the rule is I before E except after C. And the rule goes like this. I before E except after C, unless it sounds like A, as in neighbor or way. Now, I want to tell you right up front before I give you this rule and go through it, that there are many exceptions to the rule, and maybe this can even be one of the most frustrating things when it comes to spelling in the English language. So think of these as a guideline, but it can be really helpful for a lot of words when it comes to improving your spelling. First of all, I before E except after C. As a general rule, you'll notice this when you write things like, would you like a piece of cake? Or Jerry will believe anything. Or they're planting new grass on the football field. These are the most common words where the rule does apply, and this is the general rule that I usually comes before E in most spelling. The second part of this rule is except after C. So if we have words that where this comes after the letter C, then we're going to reverse it and put E before I. And some good examples of this are Darnell received an A on his spelling test, or Jeremy spotted a spider on the ceiling, or I never expected such deceit from you. So while the general rule is I before E, there are some situations when it does come after C that we reverse it and we put E before I. And then, unless it sounds like A, as in neighbor or way, and here's another example as well, our neighbors lived in a beige house. So if it sounds like A, we put the E before the I. How much does this kitten weigh? Okay, so that's the general rule, I before E, except after C, unless it sounds like A, as in neighbor and way. But of course, when it comes to rules for the English language, there's also some exceptions. And here are some of the most common exceptions to the rule. The word sees, either, and sometimes it's pronounced either. Weird, height, foreign, leisure, conscience, counterfeit, forfeit, neither or neither, science, species, and sufficient. So you can see that when we put E before I, there are many different pronunciations and sounds that this combination of letters can make. So just be aware, even though we have this rule, it is only a general rule. It does apply in most cases, but there are a few familiar exceptions, and I would just encourage you to become familiar with the exceptions to this rule, and I hope it will help you with this tricky spelling when it comes to your English language ability. Let's talk, secondly, about adding suffixes to words that end in Y. So when we're adding a suffix, like an ending to the word, like ed or er or est, as in a superlative, we usually take the Y and we change it to an I before we add the ending. Okay, so that's important to know. In most cases, we'll change the Y to an I before we add the suffix or ending to the word. So here are some examples. The word cry, cried or crier, dry, dried or dryer, lay. Now this is a special one because it's an irregular verb, and it's one of the only cases where we take the Y that when it follows a vowel and change it to an I. In most cases, if the Y is preceded by a vowel, you don't change it to an I. For example, as in play and played, you don't change the Y to an I. Baby, if we want to make it plural, we say babies or write babies. The same with family and families. And if we want to take ugly and make it into a superlative, we say the ugliest. Okay. So it's important just to recognize this little rule, and it will help you with your spelling. Here's some examples. This is the dustiest old house I've ever seen. The best bakers make the flakiest pie crusts. The soup needs the tiniest pinch of salt, and then it's perfect. And seawater dries out your skin. So just another little tip. First of all, be aware of that rule, I before E, except after C. And then be aware of spelling when it comes to adding suffixes to words that end in Y. Now, one thing about adding a suffix to a word that ends in Y, we usually don't change it if we're adding the ending ing. The baby has been crying for almost an hour. The minute we brought in the new puppy, our mother began laying down sheets of newspaper. We should spend some time tidying before the guests arrive. So if the suffix is an ing, don't change the Y to I. For all the other suffixes, ed, er, est, make sure you change the I to Y before you add that new ending to the word. Okay, just be aware when it comes to adding an E to a word, the silent E. Adding an E can change the sound of a word completely. For example, kit. I have a toolkit for doing repairs on my car. So when there's no E, it's a short vowel sound, like kit. But if I add an E, it becomes the word kite, and the I changes to a long vowel sound, kite. I like to fly a kite on windy days. Okay, so just be aware that an E does change the sound of a word. A silent E can also change the meaning of a word as well as the sound. Okay, so if I might tell you, well, I was preparing dinner and I cut my finger with the knife. Okay, cut. But if I add an E to that, it becomes the word cute. My sister's baby is very cute. Okay, so it not only changes the sound, it changes the meaning completely. And an E on the end of a word can not only change the sound and the meaning, it can also change the verb tense. Yesterday, I bit my tongue. Okay. Um, and if I add an E to that word, it becomes bite. I hope the dog doesn't bite me. Okay. It's a completely different verb tense. So just be aware, it's a simple thing, but a little E on the end of a word can make a big difference. Let's talk for a minute about double consonants. When we are adding a suffix to a word, if we want to change, for example, a word and we want to add ed, in the case of the word drop, which only has one P, if we want to add ed ending and make it into the past tense, we have to add another P and double the consonant P. So it becomes, I dropped the heavy bags to the floor. Okay, and that way we have two P's instead of one. In some cases, if there's a double consonant already at the end of the word, then we keep it, the double consonant, and simply add our ending. Someone called for you earlier. Okay, so we're just, again, these are simple rules, but they are important to be aware of when it comes to your spelling, and it may just refresh and review what you've learned in the past and help you on test day. Sometimes these double consonants, it's important to be aware of double consonants when it comes to the meaning of a word. For example, if there's only one S, we say cacti are native to the desert. And we're talking about a dry area like the Sahara Desert. But if I have two S's in the word, if I have that double consonant in the word, the two S's, it's a completely different word and different pronunciation. Would you like ice cream for dessert? Okay. Cacti are native to the desert. Would you like some ice cream for dessert? And you can see that it's not only a different sound, it's a completely different word and different meaning. And again, just be aware of how double consonants change the pronunciation. Sometimes it can take a word that can have one syllable, and depending on how we use the word, it could have two syllables. For example, this quotation from Scripture, blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. It has two syllables, blessed. But if we want to talk about that word in another context, we say the father blessed his son before the wedding. So blessed as an adjective has two syllables. As a verb in the past tense, the father blessed his son. It has a different pronunciation and only one syllable. So just be aware of double consonants when it comes to your, not only your writing, but also in your speaking. It has a different pronunciation. What about plural suffixes? If we want to make a word plural, and we want to be aware, especially with words that end in S, SH, CH, X, or Z. When a word in singular ends with one of these sets of letters or letters, we add es to make it plural. I only had to take one bus. You had to take 2 buses. I only get one wish. You get 2 wishes. I have a splotch on my shirt. You have 2 splotches. I'm carrying one box. You're carrying 2 boxes. Would you like a spritz of perfume? 2 spritzes, please. And I'm just going to give you, if you didn't hear me as I was saying those words, a little pronunciation tip. When you add es to a word, it is never pronounced s. It's never pronounced how it looks. It's always pronounced as if it was the letters I-Z. Is. Bus, buses. Wish, wishes. Box, boxes. Okay, so it's one of those beautiful things about the English language that frustrates us so much. It's never pronounced es, as. It's always pronounced is. Buses and boxes. For all the other words, then when you want to make them plural, you simply add s. Okay, I have 1 cat, you have 2 cats. 1 cup, 2 cups. In that case, s sounds like s. But what if you have 2 shoes or 2 skis? In this case, it's just another little pronunciation tip. The S sounds like a Z. So just be aware when you are making sentences into plural, if it ends with S, SH, CH, X, or Z, you add ES, and you pronounce it is. For all the other words, just add S, and it may be pronounced as an S, like cats, or it may be pronounced like a Z, as in shoes. And those are my 5 tips for spelling. And I just want to end this lesson with some tips on how to improve your spelling. And there's really no quick fix. There's no tricks. There's no secret formulas. But most helpful to you can be reading and writing. So as you're reading, when you notice that a word is a word that you find tricky to spell, write it in a special notebook just to review and remind you. You don't have to go looking for new words or words that you haven't learned yet. Just when you see words that you recognize, and you might even say to yourself, "Oh, I didn't realize it was spelled like that." When you see these words that seem to be spelled in a strange way, or a way that you weren't aware of, these are the words to take notice of. Don't go studying words that you already know how to spell. Look at when you come across a new word in reading, put it down in a notebook, and when you get a chance, practice writing sentences or writing paragraphs. When you're doing your practice writing for your IELTS essays, if you come to a word and you're not sure how to spell it, just spell it as best you can, and then go back later and check your spelling. And if a word looks like it's not spelled correctly, or you're unsure of it, then look it up and check your spelling. And I'll give you one more tip for spelling, and this is a tip for test day, and it has to do with the listening section. The reading section is the one section where you should never have any problem with spelling, because all the words that you have to spell in your answers are in the text. You're always taking words from the text and you're copying words from the text, so there should be no reason for spelling mistakes or spelling problems in the reading section. But in the listening section, as you're listening, you might have to write in a word, and you might not even be sure how to spell it. Don't let that be a reason for panic. Don't let that be a reason for you not to write the word. Write the word as it sounds. Remember, at the end of the listening section, you have 10 minutes to transfer your answers to the answer sheet. That is the time to check your spelling. So don't let spelling stop you from writing in an answer while you're listening and doing the test. Check your spelling during the 10 minutes that you're transferring your answers to the answer sheet. Well, I hope you found this helpful, and these are just some little tips to help you improve your spelling and not make some of the common errors that are possible on the IELTS exam.